Wembanyama sets a very lofty goal. What will the Spurs need to do to get that? And will Cissoko even be a factor next season?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Chris Sabat, and you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kent 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Almost there. We're almost through the week. We're at hump day. Hope you're going to get through today and then see that week just cruise on by to the weekend where you can enjoy some R&R. Hey, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, Kens 5 Plus app. The list goes on and on. Hey, what are we talking about today? Well, Wembanyama spoke to French media, and he said the Spurs, well, let me put it this way. He said he wants the Spurs to make the postseason in his year one. Will he do it? You go buy or sell? And we're going to have some fun. Ask, what will one thing need to happen for that to happen and the Spurs see the postseason in his rookie season? And then speaking of rookies, we're going to be looking at the other one, Sidy Cissoko. Will he even be a factor this upcoming season? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Spurs. But before we get into that, I introduce our guest. I just want to talk to you quickly about community outreach. You know, one thing I love about the Spurs is that, they're all business on the court and they're all business off the court. Whether that is helping the Uvalde victims in Uvalde, Texas, after the massacre, the mass shooting, to just yesterday, Zach Collins and the rest of the Spurs were there for a ribbon cutting ceremony at a local school for renovations to their basketball, their gym court. I mean, the Spurs do it all. And that's what I like about this team. Very community first minded. And sure, I'm sure other NBA teams do that, but there's other NBA teams and then there are the Spurs. And that's one thing that you're going to have to keep in mind moving forward, as much as the excitement is going to be between those lines and those hoops. And hopefully the Spurs racking up W's. Keep in mind, too, this Spurs franchise has done a lot for the community, and not just recently in past years and even until now. David Robinson, well into retirement, but very focused on education. You're looking at even Manu Ginobili. He's trying to get people out and about outdoors to go hiking and biking. This is something that should make you appreciate the Spurs. And as much as you're seeing changes on the roster and one era to a possibly brand new era with Wemby on board, one thing stays the same, and that is the Spurs community first mindset. You got to love the Spurs for that. And hopefully you to do your part as well, to follow their lead and do your part in the community, whether that be just showing up to an event. The Spurs invite you to, if you're lucky enough to be part of that program. Like recently, some kids at Antioch School had a chance to meet Zach Collins, and a lot of the family were there to take part in that, to support their kids. So, the Spurs are very good on the court. Well, hopefully they'll be on the court. We'll talk about that more in a few minutes. And they are just as equally, if not better, off the court. And that's where it begins. And I know a lot of Spurs fans really got nervous, like, oh, they're going to move, they're going to relocate to Austin. Well, the fact that they're continuing to service the San Antonio community should tell you that it is San Antonio first. And that is what your silver and black team does each and every season. So we'll definitely be seeing a lot of your Spurs going out and about in the community, whether it be Zach Collins recently to hopefully Wembanyama and many more. They'll be there serving San Antonio. All right, well, let's go and bring in our guest to talk about the future or like the soon-to-be future that is the Spurs' upcoming season. And Wemby, well, let's just say, he has a high bar to meet. He then set a goal for the Spurs to meet next season in year one. It's going to bring him on. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. There is Rudy. And Rudy, hey, you were there at that Zach Collins event. The Spurs, man, I mean, they really put their best foot forward. Even your daughter got to participate in it, didn't she?
Yeah, so my daughter, attends a local private school. I was lucky enough to be there tonight for the ribbon cutting for the Antioch Sports Complex. And you're right, man. One thing you see Spurs come in and out of the roster, the organization, but one thing never changes is all that they do for the community, giving back to an East Side school over at the Antioch Sports Complex. It's amazing. And hey, man, the kids had a blast, and that's what's important too.
Yeah. Your daughter was a cheerleader for the event, right?
Yeah, she's a cheerleader, and she was like, "Dad, we've got to go cheer today." I was like, "Oh, okay. There's no game, but we'll see what's going on." And come to find out, the whole Spurs ribbon cutting thing over at the Antioch
Yeah.
Sports Complex. So yeah, she had a blast over there.
Awesome. And you didn't want to put on your cheerleading uniform as well? No.
I've lost a little bit of weight, but I still can't do a cartwheel, and I don't want to be at the top of a pyramid. So no, I left it at home.
Bad idea. Bad idea. Yeah, but hey, you know what? I'm glad that you got a chance to see that event, and your daughter got to be a part of it. And you can say, hey, your daughter was a part of a community event for the Spurs. cheering on Zach Collins. I think RC Buford was there.
Yeah.
The Coyote was there. We got to see volleyball ref Zach Collins. It was a great night. But let's talk about the upcoming season, and that is the Spurs and the goal that Wemby set. So let's sum up really fast, Rudy. So Wembanyama spoke to French media recently, talking about his upcoming rookie season. I'm sure we're eager, excited, the goal that everybody's setting for him, great. But then he interjected and said he's looking to push this Spurs team into the postseason, not the play-in, the postseason. We're going to talk about that right now, then have some fun with that and say, okay, what's one thing that has to happen for that to happen for the Spurs next season? But buying or selling, do you think the Spurs can match that goal that Wemby has set?
I won't ever shy away from my original takes unless I'm selling the fact that they make the playoffs. I mean, they're as constructed. They're an up and coming team. They're a young organization, as I've continued to say. But the thing with them is that the word is young. They're still young. They don't have a superstar. No, you've got Wemby coming in, who's been considered a generational talent. You could say he's a superstar, yeah, but we don't know exactly what we're getting from Victor Wembanyama just yet. Let's take this first year. It's going to be a lot of learning. It's going to be a lot of bumps and bruises still. But as far as the playoff goes, I don't have them as a playoff team. A lot would have to happen in order for that to come true.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put you on the hot seat in a bit and ask you what's one thing that has to happen for the Spurs to make the postseason. Look, I appreciate Wemby coming in with the right mindset. Sure, any competitor, when you get competitive, when you're bowling, Rudy, for pro players like Wemby, they want the best. And Wemby is setting this team up to become that great of a team in year one. Look, he's following the shadows of Robinson. Robinson, year one, playoffs. Tim Duncan, year one, playoffs. Could Wemby do it? Hopefully, probably not, because it was just different times. Timmy, he had a ready-made team. He came into a ready-made. Robinson, same thing. It was, it was all him, but he was just different era, different rules, and he was able to propel the Spurs into the postseason. Wemby is part of a growing team, a team that, face it, Spurs fans, they're still in rebuild mode. It's maybe not in neon signs and they're going to tank, but they're technically still reconstructing this team to build around Wemby. So as much as I love and appreciate his enthusiasm, Rudy, I'm going to say play-in minimal. I think they may be knocking on the play-in door. I can definitely see that. I can definitely see them putting the scare in teams. Like, oh my God, this team made the play-in. We got maybe have bring in the A game, but playoffs. I mean, they would have to, at minimum, I think, reach about 36 or more wins to make the play-in, because that was kind of like the gauge last year. It was about the high 30s for teams to make the play-in. I can see them do that, but to them to survive the play-in tournament, and especially if they get that low seed in that play-in tournament, it's a tall task, and it is a young team, and not many have felt the pressure of a play-in scenario or a playoff scenario. So it'll all be brand new. And Wemby, I'm there with you, man. I hope to see him break the playoffs, but I don't think that's going to happen. But one thing that we got to talk about when we get back is what will be that one thing that could make the Spurs and Wemby see that goal. Rudy's going to get in that hot seat, and I'm going to get in the hot seat with him too when we get back right here on Locked On Spurs. But before we continue, look, I want to talk to you about Jace Medical. Look, don't be caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected emergencies. That's where Jace Medical comes in. Jace handles everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. They provide 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use, and it comes in a nice case. I already got my Jace case. It's very well presented. They have instructions for you once you open it. They have these life-saving medications that can help you and your family, your loved ones, whoever it may be, in case there is an emergency. Look, all it takes for you to do is just go to Jace Case and fill out a simple online form. And in some cases, you jump on a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians. You get ongoing care from the physicians on any treatment-related question. Doctor created, doctor recommended. Look, you want to get the Jace Case right now. So you want to go and look for it. Just Google it. Just type in Jace Case. You'll get there. And look, let me tell you right now, I looked at those medications and they look like they could come in handy should I face an emergency, or maybe a family member might face an emergency. I just want to be prepared, and I feel comfortable knowing that I have that on hand just in case. Look, with storms, pandemic, shortages, reliance on China and supply chain issues, we need to be prepared more than ever. Jace Medical is simple. You go online, like I said, you fill out the form, then you get a prescription, life-saving medications delivered right to your door. The Jace Case gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping to have that access to medication in an emergency situation. You actually have it in hand. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASEMEDICAL.com. And we are back right here on Locked On Spurs with that guy. Good job, man. You've been losing weight like crazy. I remember when you came on Locked On Spurs when I met you. Total 360 or 180, I should say. I'm sorry. So kudos to you. It's all that bowling, right?
Yeah, it's all the bowling. And you know what's funny was when we first started Locked On Spurs and I was on, we never did camera. Yeah. So you told me we're gonna do camera one day, and I thought, well, I better start lifting weights. I better start getting
cardio. That's exactly what that was.
So Jeff doesn't have to get widescreen for me. He can keep me inside that little camera.
There you go. Make sure to follow Rudy on Twitter at Sweep the League. He'll talk about his show, Sweep the League, and more, and what he's doing on YouTube with a familiar face on Locked On Spurs, Joe Garcia. He'll talk about that and more later on this episode of Locked On Spurs. So Wemby set that bar high. We're both kind of saying, maybe not Wemby, but let's just have some fun. I'm going to throw you in the hot seat to begin with. What is one thing that could possibly happen for the Spurs to actually make the postseason in Wemby's year one?
So for me in the hot seat, I mean, are they going to take 15 teams into the playoffs this year? Because that's kind of like the only way they can do that. Yeah. But no, it's going to be two things for me. One thing, the biggest thing is injuries. If you're going to see a lot of these teams, stars getting injured, they're obviously going to have tough seasons. But you've got multiple teams in the West. You've got Denver, Phoenix, the Kings, Memphis, Clippers, Warriors. These guys have multiple stars in their teams. So it's going to be a little tough. If one star goes down, they're probably still going to be a playoff team. But barring some injuries, they could possibly get into maybe a play-in seed, the play-in game right there. But one thing that could happen, and let's not pretend that it can't here, but one major thing is a trade. If they can trade for a star, a superstar throughout the season to go along with the likes of Devin and Keldon and Wemby, because remember, they got a lot of draft capital. They have a lot of cap space, and they have a couple of contracts like a Doug McDermott that are still expiring. So, I mean, they're going to want to be moved somewhere for some assets. You never know. You could see maybe a Pascal Siakam from Toronto, maybe come to San Antonio. That would be enough to, I think, put them at least in playoff position. Not playoff position, but a play-in game position. If you get a Siakam, or you know what, if another
like a Siakam may be able to, and Wemby and the crew might be able to push them through the play-in, right?
Exactly, because Siakam gives you a bona fide superstar on the team. He's a rising star, so I think that puts him more in the play-in game type talk. So the biggest thing for me is if they can make a deal for a superstar, and we're talking, there's a lot of guys out there that are not happy. So come to San Antonio. I see people talking about Dame Lillard. I mean, he's probably going to go to Miami, but you never know in the NBA. Things happen all the time.
For me, I'm going to jump in the hot seat now. For me, I need to see everything just come together at the right time. That's step one. Like Wemby's learning curve is shorter than we think. the guys are meshing with him. Keldon or whoever it is, maybe Delvin accepts their 6-man role, and we're off and running. Like they catch fire at the right time.
Yeah.
And also, too, I think what's going to happen is just luck. I think you're going to have to see what Memphis is going through with John Moran out for 25 games. That would have to happen. So there's one less team to worry about. Look, I don't wish this on any other team, but if an injury does happen to a star player, at least in the division, like a Luka or maybe Zion, is another wasted season for the Pelicans, just those kind of things that help the Spurs build up their odds to make the postseason. And just catching like that team at the right moment. Let's just say, I'm making this up, the Warriors are on free fall. They were at sixth or fifth spot, and they just like falling down. They make the play in and catching the team at the right time.
Yeah,
I think a lot of things would have to come into alignment for the Spurs. But I love what you just said right now, a trade. Yeah, with that war chest of not just draft picks, but money. They got cash.
Yeah.
You can throw in some money for a team that's just looking to absorb money and just move on and rebuild, like a Dame Lillard. That could help this team. But also too, I think everything actually hinges on just the chemistry of this Spurs team. I'm going to give them until after the All-Star break to get going, to really finding the rhythm. When do you think the Spurs, you might see them start clicking next season?
I think the All-Star break is actually a really good spot there. Gives them half the season just about to get together and on. You gotta ask yourself, can they really win 20 games compared to last year? 20 more games, and that's a tall task for this team. I mean, with Wemby, you're probably adding maybe 8 to 10 wins, possibly more. So you got to say, can they win 18 to 20 more games this season? It's a really tall task, especially in a loaded Western Conference.
Yeah.
I think probably the All-Star break is right where I'm at with you. And one thing to consider too, I know there was mentioned by Wemby about, Duncan coming in, making the playoffs, Robinson coming in, making the playoffs. You're right. Duncan had a ready-made team, but with Robinson was kind of different. The East was loaded when Robinson came in.
Yeah.
You only had like the Lakers, you had Golden
Jazz,
State, Utah.
Jazz,
maybe Phoenix was in there, but you still had a lot of teams that weren't really good identity, I guess. Houston was another one. So Robinson's path was a little bit easier compared to what Wemby's coming into. But nonetheless, Jeff, I say All-Star break is a really good time for the Spurs because that rodeo road trip has been hectic, but it's also a building curve for this team. It always has been. So I think the All-Star break is actually a really good time.
Would you be surprised if they make the postseason? There's a part of me that says like I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be terrible. And I'm talking about not getting a 1 through 6. I'm talking about surviving the play-in to get a 7 or 8 spot. I don't think I'd be too surprised if that were to happen.
I would be surprised if they made it into the actual playoffs. If they made it into the play-in game and the
tournament. Wait, are you talking about getting a 1 through 6 or getting through a
1 through 8? Yeah,
Okay,
1 through 8. So say they get into the play-in tournament and they run the table and they get in. I'd be super surprised. If they get into the play-in tournament, I wouldn't be so shocked. I would be surprised. I would be a little shocked, but I wouldn't be like extremely shocked. Like, oh my God, they really did this.
I wouldn't be surprised simply because of defense. I think that's where the Spurs are going to really excel next season. We know Wemby, just his presence alone, is going to be a terror and a nightmare for opposing teams. But there's Sohan, there's Trey Jones in the perimeter. We're forgetting about Reggie Bullock, a big burly dude that can come and, perhaps be a pest on defense. Yeah. Zach Collins, another defender. I think maybe it'll be their defense that gets them through that play-in tournament. And, I say that they're not going to be offensively loaded. They do. But, I think their bread and butter is going to be defense next season. Defense wins games, and I think that will get the Spurs through the play-in. That's why I won't be too surprised if their defense is clicking. I got them among one of the best defenses in the league next season. I think that's going to happen. I'm not saying number one. I think I got them in somewhere in the top 8 next season just because of Wemby alone. I think that'll get them through. Hey, we're not done talking. When we get back, we're going to ask Rudy, and I'm going to talk about Rudy's opinion because he already told me what it is. Sidy Cissoko will be a factor next season. Yeah, that other rookie. Yeah, that wasn't just Wemby. They got drafted this past summer. Right here on Locked On Spurs. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more, including futures. NBA season right around the corner. Your Spurs are around the corner. Go see what those player props could be. What are those futures? Can the Spurs get that win total that Vegas thinks? What about the play-in tournament? Go check it out using the FanDuel app. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. But, Rudy, have you been to Mudslingers yet?
I go a lot, man. I go very frequently out there.
What do you get when you go there?
I get the original, the Mudslinger. I get that almost every time, all the time.
All right. Well, there's your right there, first-hand testimony why you should be going to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee right now, San Antonio, locally owned, a proud sponsor of Locked On Spurs, and the first, mind you. And we are happy they're on board. You know, Rudy just talked about the Mudslinger. We cannot forget about the OG.
Yeah.
Rudy, we know about that original Orange Julius. We know what it tastes. We miss it, but we don't have to miss it anymore. We could just go to Mudslingers because they got the OG right now. Go get it right now. If you want to have those nostalgia vibes plucked, go get the OG. It's the Orange Julius recreated. But Rudy, have you had the Alien? I'm sorry, that's in honor of Wemby. Is it as strong as it is? It's a full can of Red Bull and green apple and kiwi.
Since the weight loss, I haven't drank a whole lot of stuff like that, but I did try it with the wife, and yeah, it's a very strong drink. It's a very good drink.
It'll get you going. Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely ready to lift like 600-700 pounds.
And you probably can, considering how much you've been losing weight and in that gym. But yeah, there it again, testimony right there. You know, get the Alien. It's in honor of Victor Wembanyama's arrival. There's also the Sub-Zero, which is drink inspired by Frank Harris of UTSA. I hear that's very good and very popular. The mini donuts. I don't know if Rudy's cheating on his diet, but I hear a lot of people love those mini donuts. So go get them. They are at Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. They are at 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. That's in the Stone Oak area, 211604 if you're in San Antonio. Over 300 5-star reviews, cannot be wrong. They got dairy alternatives. They got the Red Bull infused lightning bolt series. It's exactly what it says. It'll get you going. It'll get you going through your day. They got the signature coffee, like Rudy was talking about, the Mudslinger. It's espresso, caramel, dark chocolate. It's really delicious. Friendly staff, great menu. Look, you got to go there right now. They're open every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Find them on Threads, TikTok. Is it X now, Rudy? I keep on wanting to call it Twitter. It's X now.
I still call it Twitter.
Yeah, I still call it Twitter too. Threads, like I said, Facebook, TikTok. I mean, just pick any type of social media platform. You can find Mudslingers. Now, how do you find them? It's at Mudslinger, SATX. Life is too short for bland coffee. All right, let's go and wrap up this episode of Locked On Spurs with my good friend, Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. He's going to be talking about his show in just a few seconds. But we forget there's another rookie on the roster. You know, Wemby's taking the spotlight, and rightfully so. But there's Sidy Cissoko, another French import. He looks like an athletic beast. He looks like possibly what Lonnie Walker should have been, you know, if he does pan out. But considering the makeup of the roster right now, they already hit their max already. I think they were hit 20, 21 around there. Do you foresee the young kid from France, Sidy, being any type of factor next season?
And it's not a disrespect to CD, but absolutely not. I mean, I think he's going to spend majority of the time in Austin. He's going to get his run out there. You're going to see him on the Spurs roster from time to time. Player go down with injury, you know, maybe out for a week or two. So you may see him call up to the Spurs active roster. But I think he's going to spend majority of the time in Austin, which I have no problem with. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys come up through the Austin ranks, Jonathan Simmons, a lot of other guys too. So I think CD's going to be a good player later on down for the Spurs, but also he's in a position where they're kind of jam-packed in that position. So I think him being a rookie is he's going to be in Austin a whole lot this year. I don't expect a whole lot from him, but then again, I mean, if he's balling out in Austin, they may give him a shot. So who knows? And if it's a lost season per se, and they're not going anywhere, then you may see him call up a little bit more if he's really putting it to him in Austin.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think he'll spend a bulk of his rookie season with the Austin Spurs. I foresee him looking like a man among boys. I can definitely see that, where we're going to be seeing highlights like crazy from him in the G League, just dunking on people, scoring, ungodly numbers and whatnot. And you're going to hear the Spurs fan base say, "Bring him back, call him up." But you're right, and there's a logjam right there. Malachi. Reggie Bullock, he's kind of Devin, Keldon. They got a lot of those in that mold of those type of player. CD is, but I mean, for a 19-year-old kid, I mean, he looks like an athletic freak. He looks like he has an NBA ready body. Yes. I mean, he looks insanely ready to go right now, but it could just come down to numbers. And will he get the call up? Of course. Is he probably going to get some spot minutes if it's a blowout or if the Spurs are getting thumped? Probably. But he's going to follow that Spurs Austin traditional path. And again, like Rudy said, there's no knock on him. DeJounte Murray went through it. Lonnie Walker went through it. Derek Boban went through it. A lot of Spurs have gone through that system, so it's no knock on him. But Rudy, I got a feeling he's going to be showing out and forcing that San Antonio coaching staff to rethink things and be like, oh, maybe we should bring him up. Perhaps we might see him get flip-flopped a lot. Perhaps Charles Bassey goes down there, then they call up CD. Injuries do happen. Load management does happen. And I think that's where you'll probably see CD coming in. But I'm excited to see what he has in store. So it's going to be an exciting season. I mean, it is ready. It is here to come. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about Wemby's goal for the team? Do you think they'll make the postseason as Wemby hopes they are? And what is one thing you think might happen for the Spurs to get to that goal that Wemby has set? And what about CD? You think he'll be spending time in San Antonio or Austin? Let us know. But before we let you go, Rudy, tell us what's going on with Sweep the League. What is cooking and what's going on YouTube?
Yeah, so Sweep the League world, it's a lot of NFL talk, right now. NFL's going once NBA.
That's your bread and butter, man. I always say you're away. Football is like your thing, man.
We're talking a lot of college football, Jeff. The Longhorns are number 3 in the country right now, so everybody's on a high in Texas. Talking to NFL, a lot of injuries, a lot of season-ending injuries, just a lot of news all together. Spurs talk coming up, MLB playoffs coming up. So we're talking all things sports. And YouTube-wise, you'll catch me every now and then with a good friend of ours, Joe Garcia, just a Two Shots podcast himself. I run the Alamo City Sports podcast. So every now and then you'll catch me on there, but it's just talking sports, man.
Yeah. And you're also doing the fantasy gods too, is that correct?
Yeah, so every now and then I'm jumping on with Brandon Medina as well for the fantasy guides, giving away fantasy advice to everybody. So my fantasy teams are looking really bad because pretty much everybody that's gone down for the year.
You're a fantasy guy?
I have.
Are you sure you're a fantasy guy?
This year I'm gonna say probably not, because everyone I drafted is out for the year or on IR. So I'm off to a terrible start in a lot of leagues, but it is what it is.
He is Rudy Campos. Follow him on Twitter at Sweep the League. Hey, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, the Kens 5 Plus app, YouTube. Pick a platform, you will find Locked On Spurs. And you guys are the everydayers. We'll likely be back tomorrow, I'm pretty sure, talking to all things Spurs, getting you ready for the season, and any news and notes that may pop up between now and then. But for Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.